Hello, welcome to another Friday artwork video. So at the moment for December 2023, just going through the remainder of the theme decks I own for this particular artwork slot, and then in the new year 2024 we'll be back in a position where I'll be able to start going through some individual singles for the artwork video slot on a Friday, and we'll be starting with 8th edition and then moving forward from there and catching up to where I originally remember this whole Friday artwork thing really sort of started off around the time of the Lorwyn block, and then I sort of went forward from there. So what I'm doing is, I've gone back in time and I'm now sort of caught up in terms of getting to a point where I can start talking about singles that I actually own and that they match up with the other videos that I'm putting out about Magic the Gathering, so everything syncs up. So yeah, in the new year in 2024 January we will be back looking at singles and we'll be back looking at 10th edition. But in the meantime, got some very interesting theme decks to talk about, or basically two more now. So this one, Azorius Ascendant, and then in the follow-up video from this for next week, I'll be looking at another Dissension deck. These are all decks I've featured before in terms of unboxings, but for these ones, if you've watched the previous ones, what I do is I go through the deck from really an artwork perspective, but I do, seeing as this is an older deck, I do sort of start zoomed out on the cards, so you can just get a feel for what's in the deck. I'll include a link to the original unboxing video where I'll probably go through a little bit more about the the theme of the deck, but in this video I'll zoom in halfway through and we'll actually get a real close look at the artwork. So yeah, these inserts haven't really changed much from the previous one we looked at. Same sort of thing. They always have, at this point in Magic's history, a little bit about the set, because it's quite possible that people buying these theme decks hadn't bought any other products at all, so weren't familiar, say, with what themes and mechanics were in Dissension. So one side is sort of caters for those players, and then the other side is actually instructions on the deck and what's in the deck as well. So yeah, how to play the deck down there, and then how to customize it. So yeah. Right, as always, we have a rather nice foil basic land, which was an extra card that we're including in decks of this time and previous to this. And you always got one of those. That wasn't really part of the deck, although you could, I suppose, include it if it was swap it out with one of the regular islands, if that was in colour, which it is for this one. It's white blue. So let's go through this, do a bit of a count off of the copies as well. So we've got one copy of Vesperia. So the first two cards are the rares in the deck. Came with two rares. We've got Wakestone Gargoyle, so our second rare, and then our uncommons are Mistral Charger, of which there are two, Azorius Guildmage, which there is one, Stoic Ephemera, and there are a couple of those, Sky Hazard, a couple of those. We've got a Paladin of Prav, a Palatation Accord, I think that is, a Sin Striker Will, so these are, as you can see, all one-offs, Halcyon Glaze, I think that is, yeah, two Arms, and then moving on to the commons, Beacon Hawk, and looks like, what is it, 3 copies of that. So occasionally in the theme decks you do get 3 copies of something, but a lot of the times it's 1s and 2s, well, apart from the basic lands obviously. Azorius First Wing, there are 2 of those, Benevolent Ancestor. Yep, another multiple copies, 2 of those. Soul Sworn Jury. Oh, we've got 3 of those. So it seems to be slightly more copies of things in the commons cards. So I slightly messed the order up here. Let me just put that on off camera. There's a bit of a thing go wrong. Let me okay, that's better. Right. Sorry about that. Okay. Minister of Impediments. Yeah, I like to try and keep them in order on camera. It makes it easier when I'm going back through them with the artwork, and I had a bit of a slip there. Tidewater Minion. 3 of those. Zephyr Spirit, single one of that. Stealing Stance, single of that. Plumes of Peace. And we've got a couple of copies. There's a Faith Fetters in the deck. Ocular Halo, of which there are 2. And then moving on to the land base. So in terms of non-basic lands, we do have a Prov Spire of Order. And then these, so yeah, they were putting the bounce lands in these decks. I don't know. I've only got like a few from the block. In fact, I think all the cards I've got, all the decks I've got, might be Dissension. But yeah, they were including the bounce lands, the original bounce lands in these decks. So we've got 2 of these. Obviously the blue, white, blue ones. And then the basics. So let's have a count off of the artwork. So we've got 3 of the first piece of artwork. 3 of the next. 3 of the next. So it looks like we've got 4 pieces of artwork in the set in total. So, and all of those are 3-ofs. Okay, good. I'll focus in on those in a moment. Get up nice and close for the individual copies. And then moving on to islands. So 3 copies of the first one. 2 of the next. A couple of the next one. And then, what was it, 2 islands. And then at this point they were also sticking these stats cards in here to do with players on the Pro Tour. So that's the one in this deck. Okay, let's reset the camera. And get in nice and close. There we go. Straighten our cheese board. We can't have a wonky cheese board, that'll never do. Okay. So of course some of the artwork here as well is going to feature, I suppose, cityscapes in the background like that last one did, but we'll see how far that goes. Yeah, always interesting to see a cycle of guild mages in sets, I think. And the other thing to notice as well over the years is, you know, the borders on the various cards in respect to combination of colours. So you look at a monocolour card in Magic of this era. Obviously, the border has a certain look. I'm talking about inner borders here, not obviously the outer black border. And then you get the two colour cards, like this one, Palatation Accord, and you can see the sort of colour bleed from white into blue, like left to right across that inner border. And you know, in different sets, two colour, you know, three colours, whatever, have over time, I suppose, been represented in different ways in that inner border. Maybe in the rules text area, you know, we've got things like watermarks appeared later in Magic as well. And watermarks are often used as well in later sets to really help with you know, deck building as well. So it was quite clear if you were drafting, like, you know, and playing like a set where there's some theme related to colour combination, like who belongs with what particular, you know, guild or shard or wedge or whatever. So yeah. And then also, as they've, you know, over time, we don't really see it here, as they've introduced either new types of cards or wanted to make certain types of cards like pop. Again, playing around with border elements along the top, around the sides, those sort of things. So yeah, it was interesting to see, you know, later in Magic how that developed over time. But here, relatively straightforward. And again, here we have a two colour card, although this one is hybrid mana. So you notice in the set, we'll keep our eye open for a two colour card as opposed to hybrid mana. So here on this card, because it's hybrid, you see these borders here and here. So we've got this bleed from white to blue, but then this side's white, this side's blue, and all the edging around here is, you know, the colours from the two colours. And as we go through, and you've seen a couple already, but let's keep our eye open for the actual, you know, the actual two colour, like gold, as they call them, gold cards. So I've got one coming up in a moment actually where you can see that. And speaking of actual watermarks, they're pretty faint on this actually, and they are there. Let me just see. You see, it's quite difficult to see. Maybe not as clear as in older sets, but they were definitely using watermarks at this point. So as indicators to do with the guilds. So yeah, here's a white, blue, gold colour. So you can see the difference. We've still got that down here. We still have that sort of white and blue, and then that sort of inner border. But then between it, the gold. So you've got the picture border, but then you've got this border between the black border and the picture border, which is the gold coloured one. Maybe sometime in the future I should think about doing a video sort of about the evolution of the borders on cards with, you know, actual physical cards. because I probably got enough of the different eras, although I won't have individual sets necessarily all through Magic, but enough of the eras of Magic to probably do that in most colours and colour combinations, but we'll see. I'll have to have a look through, see what is feasible. Probably be a nice Yuletide video sometime in the future when I run out of basic lands to feature. Okay, so let's move on to the. Speaking of basic lands, that was rather an unplanned segue in. So yeah, the first piece of artwork. I always seem to remember the cityscape artwork more than the sort of non-cityscape artwork, if indeed that is ever a thing. I think sometimes in these sets where they're related to the guilds, I think the vast majority of the artwork, the land artwork, is related to cityscapes, but you do get the odd one cropping up that isn't. I don't know if that's quite the case in this deck. But for instance, this one, I always seem to remember this particular one. And there's a one in blue in a moment, I think. Yeah, I'll come on to that actually. That I always, have like a visual image of it in my head when I think of Ravnica. Look. Oh, got some gargoyles. Big fan of gargoyles on the channel. Yeah, so the one in blue that I always tend to think about is this one. That sort of top-down view. And maybe that's because I think, of the different views that they seem to present in these, it is the top-down ones that for some reason I remember better, like, just going back to ones we've looked at already, that particular one as well. Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that flip through the artwork of that deck. As I've said, I did do an actual unboxing for this deck back when I got it, and I'll include a link to that in the description. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.